Okay, my name is Baba Israel. I'm the artistic director of Contact here in Manchester. I grew up in New York City, and I grew up in the arts. My parents were both in the theater, and they were in a very crazy, cutting-edge theater company called the Living Theater, which was a bit of an infamous company that traveled all across Europe and North Africa and Brazil in the 60s and 70s. I grew up literally living with that theater company. There was like 30 of us, and we all lived in Brooklyn when I was a kid. So I kind of grew up and was immersed in the arts from an early age. But I grew up in New York in kind of the 80s, so I got also really exposed to hip hop culture and became interested in hip hop and started beatboxing and writing lyrics. So I've always been interested in sort of theater and performance and the arts, but then also in kind of contemporary forms like hip hop and spoken word. So that's a little bit of my background. This is the first time I've run a building. I came to Contact as a performer in 2005, and I came actually with my dad, and he's a jazz musician and a poet, and we did a sort of a double bill. And we walked into this building, and we were completely freaked out. We just had never seen a theater that was kind of as funky as this and as welcoming of diverse audiences, of young people. And we kind of felt like we were in a bit of a dream because it was sort of like a place that we would have imagined. There's nothing like this in New York, first of all. I mean, you have great venues in New York, you have great music venues, great theater venues, but no place that is sort of animated in the way that this building is. So I guess, for me it's been quite an exciting journey to go from being a touring artist. I've toured a lot around Europe, around Southeast Asia, around Australia, New Zealand, around the States, a little bit in South America. And I've toured as a musician, but also as a theater artist, and I've always had a passion for working with young people. So for me, the great thing about this building is that everything that I'm interested, happens in one space. So it's kind of a place where all my passions take place. I mean, there's just so much going on. I think the main thing is just, become a sort of fan of the Facebook group. We try not to bombard you, but we do keep you in the know. Check out my video blogs. And just come into the building. There's a lot of free monthly events happening now. One thing that I've wanted to do is really make Contact a place that's a destination. So we're doing more club nights, we have more DJs, we have open mic nights. So if you check out the website, there's so many events that are free where you can kind of come in and get a feel for the building, play around, get involved, participate, and then kind of learn about the other things that are coming up. Well, I have to say, for me, I'm very, very partial to Manchester because it's the first place I ever came in the UK. I think a lot of New York artists would first go to London, and that would be their first port of call. But I connected with an artist named Benji Reed in Washington, D.C. at the Hip Hop Theater Festival, and he kind of told me about Manchester, and he's very proud, like all Mancunians, of Manchester, and because everyone, when you say UK, they say London, and he was always, no, I'm from Manchester, like he made it really clear. So that made me really intrigued, like what is this place, what is this city? And obviously I knew about it from music, and it's got such a great music history, and some legendary bands that have come out of here, and Factory Records and the Hacienda, and I was aware of that, And it's interesting because when I learned more about that side of Manchester, it was interesting to see that there's been this kind of history and relationship with Manchester and New York, and that the Hacienda was kind of built based on the clubs in the 80s in New York, and so that's something I didn't know. But I think there's a really kind of vibrant culture here, and I mean what I enjoy about Manchester is it's a smaller city, so for me it feels a bit more like a town coming from New York, but it's still so much going on, whether it's so I go to a lot of other venues, I go to a lot of other events. It just feels very vibrant, and I think there's also there's a bit of I don't know what the right word is, I don't know if it's a rebel or a maverick kind of attitude, but a do-it-yourself attitude. I think people are really open to collaboration. It doesn't have that same sense of like cutthroat competition that maybe a New York or London has. So I think I get the sense that people are open to work together. I get the sense that from the kind of top level cultural organizations, but then also from the sort of grassroots promoters and kind of indie artists, you kind of get a feel that people are willing to collaborate and kind of bounce ideas off each other. I guess that's one thing I'm really interested in, because my background is in working in the arts, but also as being an independent artist and sort of working in the more independent scene. I really want to look at how those two worlds can connect more, because I think there is a great sort of local kind of grassroots scene in Manchester, but sometimes they're really separate from the more formal arts organizations and institutions, and how do we get that interaction happening more? I think there's a lot of, I'd love to start getting sort of club promoters to present plays with me. You know what I mean? For example, if I've got a theater piece which involves dubstep, or if I've got a theater piece that involves like a really current music form, could I get a local club promoter to co-promote that show with me? So those are the kinds of things I'm interested in, getting those kind of relationships. So no, I think it's a great city. I think it's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of interesting political history in terms of different social movements that have happened here. Obviously, the sort of the history of industry, and so it's got a historic place in the world. And then I think it's got quite a vibrant and exciting future in terms. I mean, with Media City coming here. I think there's a real push in terms of digital as well here. There's the hack spaces and spaces in the northern quarter that are emerging. I think it's a real kind of just a hotbed of innovation and new ideas. And so I think Manchester's going to be putting itself on the map even more, and it's kind of in a kind of a renaissance at the moment. I mean, one of my biggest challenges doing a job like this is I very rarely get to leave the building. But I'm trying to do that more. But I have to say, I go to Band on the Wall quite a lot. I'm a big music fan, so it's great to go and go to another venue, hear music, and not have to worry about anything logistic. Just go to relax. So I've been to a lot of shows there. I really want to check out Islington Mill. That's been on my radar for a long time. So, because I hear there's a lot of cool things happening, and I've almost gotten there a few times. There's quite a few places that I've been in the northern quarter that some of them I don't even remember the names, but just like cool little spots where I've heard music. I've been to Matt and Fred's quite a bit. There's some great, so I think those are some of the things. I think one of the things I try to do when I'm not here is see music, because here I'm dealing with a lot of theater, but also some music. But in a way, that's a great sort of outlet for me just to relax and kind of get into another zone. I think that's probably the main thing. I mean, I've heard also a lot of legends about the countryside and Lake District, and that's one thing I need to do more, is kind of get out of the city a bit more. I think I also need to discover like areas more like Charlton. I've been out there a little bit and went to a couple of cool little spots and heard some DJs play. So yeah, if you know any places, tell me. I'm definitely wanting to know the city more. I eat up in Rusholme sometimes. I found a couple of cool spots up there to eat. I've been around kind of to Longsight. I've got some friends who live in Hume. I think Hume's quite an interesting area, and also has a really interesting history and is a very diverse place. So I think I'm still getting to know the city in a way. I live in the city center, so I spent a lot of time kind of in Chinatown, walking through that area. I grew up in downtown Manhattan, actually, in Soho, and I grew up near Chinatown. So that whole area actually feels kind of familiar to me. It feels there's elements that remind me of New York, actually, and kind of the converted factories and the warehouse spaces, and it kind of has echoes of what I remember of New York, although New York has changed so much. So yeah, I think hopefully as things settle in, I'll be able to get to know the city more. But if anyone has ideas, invite me to something.